A New Jersey man charged with making terroristic threats for intentionally coughing on a grocery store worker while claiming he had coronavirus. Let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. And the Deputy Attorney General, Jeffrey Rosen, has written this memo yesterday. He says that because coronavirus appears to meet the statutory definition of a biological agent, such as acts potentially could implicate the nation's terrorism-related statutes threats, or attempts to use COVID-19 as a weapon against Americans will not be tolerated. So what do you think about this, Judge? Could somebody be charged with terrorism for coughing on somebody and saying they have coronavirus, even if they don't?
Well, let me give you both sides of the argument. This instance to which you're referring occurred in a Wegmans supermarket down the New Jersey shore, an area that I know you're familiar with, which outraged Governor Murphy. The incident consisted of some sort of a dispute between the customer and the cashier. The customer coughed on the cashier and said, "Oh, and by the way, I have coronavirus." That was reported and he was arrested. In ordinary times, he would be charged with a simple assault, meaning he didn't break her skin, didn't break her bones. But in this environment where people are understandably terrified about contracting this disease, it's unheard of to think that somebody would intentionally give it to you. So did he intentionally cause a biological agent to infect somebody else? We don't know the answer to that yet because we don't know if he's positive, and if he wasn't, then presumably the cashier is not. The problem with the government's argument is the anti-terror statutes have a couple of requirements in there. They require 2 or more acts of violence intended to alter the foreign policy of the United States. Now, who knows what this guy in Wegmans was thinking, but it's quite a leap for the government to prove that. They'd be better off charging him, locking him up, because the courts are closed in New Jersey. I don't know how long he's going to be locked up before he even sees a judge, and charge him with this simple assault and wait and see what the tests show.
Is it similar to pulling the fire alarm in a crowded theater?
Well, I mean, what he said caused an enormous disturbance, as you can imagine. And it got the attention of the governor. Governor Murphy himself, not a lawyer, but the chief law enforcement officer in the state, directed that he be charged under New Jersey's anti-terror law, which mimics the language of the federal law, which also requires 2 or more acts of violence intending to affect the foreign policy of the United States. But doing something like that in a public place can cause tremendous pandemonium, and he would be liable for injuries that occurred as a result of the pandemonium, say a stampede from people who watched and heard what he did to this cashier. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, indeed.
So
well,
look, Dana, I don't know where this is going to go.
By the way, don't do it.
Of course don't do it. But these crises, these tragedies that we're living through now often cause novel litigation, prosecutions you never thought of. This is one of them. There's probably going to be many more. I don't think anybody's going to be prosecuted until the crisis has passed and there's some general agreement about how to treat these cases.
All right. Judge Napolitano, we appreciate learning from you as always. Thank you.
Pleasure, Dana.